Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie, and today I will be sharing kind of part 2 of my surprise pregnancy journey. I'm going to be sharing how I told Jeremy, my husband, and also how we shared the news with our family. If you didn't see my episode a week or two ago, I shared the very raw and real footage of the day I took the test and found out I was pregnant with baby number 4. Surprise, big surprise, although at that point I kind of knew that I was pregnant anyhow. I mean, when you're late, you know, I kind of knew at that point. I still hadn't confirmed it to myself, or in a sense, like, made it real. And so in that video, it's really raw. I just walk through all of my emotions in the moment, really raw, really vulnerable. So if you missed that, feel free to go back and watch it, as this is kind of like the continued episode or the follow-up just with how I ended up sharing with my husband. So brief synopsis, in that video I did explain my husband is a cop. He has very long shifts. He's on nights now also, which is just some extra stress on him. And specifically as a cop wife, we kind of try to be careful how much we put on them, particularly during their rotation, because they run on adrenaline, they deal with a lot of intense situations, and so for me, I feel safer knowing that he has his head in the game and he's not, you know, thinking about family issues or family dynamics and stuff like that. So in that video, while I was processing through some of my emotions, one of the things I mentioned is that Jeremy was on shift and I didn't want to distract him with the information. So that's kind of the explanation as to why I waited to share with him. You know, and in all honesty, I was scared. I was going through some extreme emotions, things that I had never felt before, and I wasn't sure how he was going to react. So I kind of had to get the courage up to do it. I mean, let's just be honest, I was nervous. I finally ended up spilling the beans to him about 2 weeks later. I went on my very first ever ride-along with him as a cop wife, which was so fun. I saved it to my highlight reel on Instagram if you're interested in checking that out a bit. But at the very end of the night, it's about 3 in the morning to wrap up the evening. I said we were going to take, you know, one more video together, and so I shared with him in that moment that I was pregnant. And here it is.
You want to tell everybody that you made it to 220? Oh, you made it to 221.
Alright, it is 2:20 in the morning. I made it a little bit longer than I thought. I actually was anticipating about 2 something. But
she did a great job.
Of course I did. I'm awesome. So we have one more surprise for this evening, or I have one more surprise. We're having a baby.
So as you can see, I guess I didn't catch him off guard as much as I was thinking I was going to. Later, after the whole video and we were talking it through, he laughed and he goes, yeah, as soon as you pulled out your phone and kind of said, you know, one more video, he goes, I just knew something was up, and I instantly went, she's pregnant. You know, we've been married 11 years and like, yeah, he has a sense about these things. So as much as I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. I really don't. I think because of how the shock affected me, I kind of like put my feelings on him and imagined that he would deal with some of the same issues, but he didn't at all. Instantly, he was so happy. I wish I would have kept the camera rolling for my own sake. I shut it off because I was struggling, and so right after that video I actually broke down and started crying, and he was like, what, you know, why are you crying? And you know, so I started explaining some of my emotions to him, and he was just so supportive of where I was at and honoring my heart in being scared and not knowing what was going to happen. And so good for me. I really needed that support, and I honestly wish I would have told him sooner, because that's part of, you know, a marriage relationship, is like putting your trust in the other person and going like, I'm gonna share this information with you, and expecting them to support you in it. And he always has been my rock, and he's always supported me really well. So his reaction was so sweet and so kind and loving, and you know, he just instantly was ready to listen to where my heart was at and how I was struggling. And at the same time, as much as he allowed me the space to process and just to share some of my fear in that Aurora was 9 months old, this was completely unexpected, you know, just that my head was a mess and I was scared, he instantly was just like, it's okay, we're gonna be okay, it's okay, we love one another, I have a steady job, you know, we just bought a beautiful home. Like, he just he helped me set my mind back on the good things and the positive, and kind of reset myself that, like, yeah, we are gonna be okay, this is fine. Excuse me while I get a little starry-eyed and emotional. It was exactly what my mama heart needed, and my wife heart too, just knowing that, you know, that he fully supported me and us and our family, and that, like, he's here for this, was so helpful for me. And I think it put a huge burden or fear to rest for me, just knowing that he was in it with me. So as I drove home that evening, he sent me this text, and you know, of course, it was 2-something a.m. and I was already emotional, and it was just such a wonderful way to end the night, especially as I went into the evening kind of scared and nervous, and not knowing how he was going to react, and then to have him react so positively and so kindly and sum it up with how excited he was for our future was just wonderful for my heart. He's such a big teddy bear too. He came home the next day and told me that, you know, he had teared up in the car, and just that he was, you know, all soft-hearted, thinking about, like, our future. And he comes home the next morning and gives us all a kiss and looks at me and goes, we're gonna have another baby. And he just was super excited, and that made it all the more real for me, and actually started me along the path of just being excited for the future. And even though this baby was such a surprise to me, and I still was struggling through some shock and trying to make it real, I knew everything was going to be okay, and that I could actually be excited for the future. Now, on a little different note, I'm going to share with you how our families reacted when we told them. Shock, as I now know, is a very interesting emotion, and people don't always respond to it horribly well. So I got the bright idea in my head that we should film the reactions of our family at Aurora's first birthday party. We were going to have his family and my family together for a huge party for her, and I thought at the very end we could set it up and kind of do a surprise, you know, little ta-da, we're pregnant. My reasoning behind this was because I knew nobody was expecting us to be pregnant at that point. Like, I mean, again, Aurora was pretty young. We had kind of said a little bit along the lines of, we thought, you know, we might be done. Although we hadn't, like, really closed the chapter for sure or anything. But I think a lot of people kind of just assumed, like, we were going to have 3 kids, and that was probably it. So I figured most people would be pretty shocked, and I thought, you know, we might get some funny reactions. We did. They just weren't exactly the reactions I was necessarily expecting. So here's the video from her birthday. Okay, hold on. We're gonna do one more. All right, everybody smile.
I've been saying cheese.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Say, we're pregnant.
Oh.
Yay!
Guys. Ready? What? Aurora's gonna be a big sister!
For sure?
Are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding. No, I'm joking. Yeah.
Hey, hey!
Are you?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Fun.
I didn't press. That's right. I still cringe a little every time I watch that video, because the reactions are, yeah. I was like, well, I had originally hoped to put that on my Instagram page as, you know, part of, like, the general announcement. I had a few different announcements planned, or, you know, days, like a few different posts planned, and that was supposed to be one of them, was like, here's how we told our family, and like, woohoo. And then like, I showed it to Jeremy and he goes, yeah, that video shouldn't go anywhere. So, being kind of naughty and sharing it on YouTube. Yeah. I feel like that video slightly should go along with like the pregnancy announcement fail videos. I've watched a few now that made me feel a little bit better. That I was like, oh, you know, when you blindside people and you shock them, their initial reaction isn't always like, catch up, yay! You know, sometimes it takes people's brains a while to catch up, and so even towards the end of the party, you know, everyone hugged us and was like, congratulations, but I think in the moment, you can see half of the faces don't change at all, like, they're just like frozen, shock, okay, you know, or you, like brain processing. I think the other problem is my family knows I'm a jokester, so you keep hearing people going, you know, are you? And like my mom's reaction was, you're not. Yeah. I think people were confused. They weren't sure if I was doing it as a joke or, you know, maybe for something for social media. When you work in social media and you make this big deal about, you know, not pranking people. I don't prank people, but I do joke around and tease and, you know, so maybe they weren't sure whether or not to take us seriously. And then there's my sister's reaction, which I was like, ding, 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 ding. That's what I was looking for. I was expecting more. Oh, what? Oh my gosh. So my sister nailed it. Thank you, Caitlin. I will save that reaction forever, and that'll be the one that I focus on. And as you can hear, like at the very end, my friend Megan, who was there, you know, she was super excited. So I think it just took people a little while to catch up. Like I said, shock is a very interesting emotion, and I now know, having dealt with some shock myself, that in the moment, you know, your first reactions aren't always ones to go by. So trying to withhold, you know, being offended or frustrated and just go, you know what, that probably wasn't my best idea to shock people like that. But we did. So there it is. So to wrap this all up, I just kind of want to tell you where I'm at, because I am 20 weeks pregnant today, and I think I kind of threw a few people off because of sharing my reaction video just a week or two ago. People didn't realize how far along I was and if those were like my emotions right now, stuff like that. I held it because obviously we didn't tell people until I was like 14 weeks along, so people have only known 6 weeks. And I just wanted to release that in a careful way and make sure that I didn't put it out there without fair warning, just because it is a really touchy and raw video. But yeah, so I am 20 weeks today, and honestly, I still struggle with the shock now and again, just going like, oh yeah, like I'll look down, there's a bump, and I'm like, oh, there's a bump, whoa. So I'm still processing through some of the, like, making this real and just being like, oh yeah, okay, and you know, we have a couple months left and then like we're gonna have another baby. So my brain is still playing catch up. Let's put that out there. But as far as emotions go, I've definitely worked to process through some of the shock and the fear. Something I didn't put my finger on in that very first video, but I think one of the reasons I was afraid stemmed from the miscarriage that I had before Aurora. Between Cece and Aurora, I experienced a miscarriage, and it rocked my world in some senses, where I struggled my whole entire time being pregnant with Aurora to actually feel joy and to be excited, because there was anxiety in me about losing her, and all of those feelings came right back. And so even though I was dealing with the shock of like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready yet, there was fear there of like, please Lord, I don't want to go through that again. So it was definitely an emotion I didn't pinpoint in the moment and didn't even really think about how that anxiety and fear was affecting me. But now that I've processed through it more, I've realized that in the back of my mind, I think there was this intense fear, and that was driving a lot of the shock and a lot of my reaction to that positive pregnancy test. So I've definitely worked through a lot of those emotions. For me, it's always really like therapeutic and healing to write to talk through some of them with safe people, you know, one of them being like my husband. And then the other thing that's actually been really fun is since I shared on social media and have just been really vulnerable about those early days, the feelings that I had. I've had so many women reach out to me, and we've just shared conversations about the shock of a surprise pregnancy and how that can affect you and stuff. So it's been wonderful. It's been really cool to get to talk to women who have had similar stories. Now that I've done some digging, I realize that more than 50% of pregnancies in the US are unplanned. Blew my mind. I was like, okay, dang, wow, this is way more, I don't want to say normal or common. It's way more common than I realized. So I think in everything that goes along with motherhood, what I am learning is it's always okay to feel your emotions, your feelings, no matter how confusing, good or bad in the moment, they're valid. Emotions are real. We can't stop ourselves from feeling. And anytime that we try to shut ourselves down and stop ourselves from feeling something, that's when issues arise. That's when we bottle things up. You know, we don't get them out and wounds start to fester. So even though I know some people struggled with me sharing that, and I did get a few comments about, you know, I pity your child if they ever see this. And I understand where they're coming from, and then they don't fully understand why I did it. For me, I don't want my kids to be afraid of sharing their emotions, good or bad, because emotions are just part of who we are, and there's something that needs to be processed through. And I think through processing all of this, one of the things that really stuck with me is I shared a post that said unplanned does not mean unwanted, and that one has touched so many women. I've had so many messages and comments from people who don't follow me, who saw it on the Explore page and just went like, wow, like I needed this, I have a similar story. And you're right, unplanned doesn't mean unwanted, but I think in our society today we've kind of put the two together, that if you didn't plan that baby, that means you didn't want that baby, and that could not be further from the truth. Although I was going through some shock and some fear and some anxiety, and those feelings were all very, very real. It doesn't mean that at the same time I didn't want this child and that I wasn't grateful for this little life and this pregnancy and the opportunity to get to be a mother to another baby. And so really processing through all that in my own head has been so helpful, and realizing that this surprise, again, even though this baby is a surprise, this baby is so completely wanted, and I am so excited for this little life to be a part of our family. So that's where I'm at. If you've come along with me on this journey a little bit, thank you so much. Thank you for your love and your support and your caring. I have appreciated it, and I have felt it since we announced with my Instagram community. I have felt the love, and that's been really, really helpful for me, even processing through some of these thoughts and feelings even more. And it's been so fun to get to share this with you. Even if it is coming on the heels of being pregnant with Aurora, it's still fun to get to bump along with a bunch of other women who are in similar stages of their pregnancy as I am. So again, if you're new here and some of this is a little overwhelming, because obviously this video is a follow-up, make sure that you follow me on Instagram. I share way more there. I'm basically daily in the stories. And don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube. I am working to make, separate content now for my YouTube channel. I'll be doing a little bit more vlogging, sharing about this pregnancy. I've got hopefully some midwife videos that'll be coming up. I think I have some really fun, exciting content planned. So make sure you're following me on Instagram for kind of like the daily stuff and all those funny photos. And then also and also that you're subscribed here on YouTube so we can keep in touch with those emotions. See you next time.